US has a few good options if China seizes Iceland close to Taiwan, war game concludes. CNN, if China were to seize one of the Taiwan's outlying Iceland, the US would have a few good options to respond without risking a major escalation and the war between the superpowers, according to the conclusions from the recent war game conducted by foreign policy and defense experts. The scenario outlined in a report from the Center for a New American Security began with China using military force to take control of Dongsha, a tiny atoll in the South China Sea between Taiwan and Hong Kong, where approximately 500 Taiwanese troops are stationed. This type of limited aggression could be a precursor to the siege of other islands near Taiwan or the outright invasion of the democratically governed Iceland as Beijing seeks to test and prod Washington's resolve to defend Taiwan. But once China has established its own military footprint on Dongsha and removed the Taiwanese troops, the US had no credible way to compel China to return the island to the control of Taipei, the report states. The economic sanctions took too long to produce effect and appear too weak to influence China's decision making, while any military action really risked an escalation to war, which both the US and Taiwan want to avoid if possible. Instead, the report stressed the need for the multilateral approach, suggesting the US, Taiwan, and Japan and other work to deter China from seizing the island in the first place. The United States and Taiwan must begin coordinating today to build a credible deterrent against the limited Chinese aggression or coercion toward Taiwan, the author wrote. In every scenario, cooperation with Japan was critical to establishing an effective deterrent. Tension increasing. Beijing has ramped up military pressure on the island in recent weeks, and Taiwan's defense minister earlier this month made a dire prediction. By 2025, China will be unable to mount a full-scale invasion of Taiwan. The war game focused on the invasion of Dongsha in 2025. Last week, U.S. President Joe Biden states that the U.S. was committed to coming to Taiwan's defense if it comes under attack from China. Remarks that seems in opposition to America's stated policy of strategic ambiguity. Asked twice during a CNN town hall whether the US would protect Taiwan if China attacked, Biden said it would. Yes, I have a commitment to do that, he said. A White House official attempted to clarify Biden's comment on Taiwan after the town hall, saying the president was not announcing any change in our policy and there is no change in our policy in his remarks about China and Taiwan. The US provides the Taiwan defensive weapons but has remained intentionally ambiguous on whether it would intervene militarily in the event of the Chinese attack. Under a One China policy, the US acknowledges China's claim of sovereignty over Taiwan. But the issue is a major focus for the administration, and China's plan for Taiwan are among the preeminent issues for the CIA's new China Mission Center, a newly created body focused exclusively on gathering and analyzing intelligence on Beijing. CIA Deputy Director David Cohen said at an intelligence conference this week. intelligence officials have not yet seen anything to suggest that China is preparing a military invasion, according to people familiar with the assessment. Cohen, speaking virtually to the conference in Sea Island, Georgia, said the agency analysts are trying to understand precisely how Chinese President Xi Jinping, who is fundamentally the decision maker on this issue, how he is thinking about Taiwan, both in relation to the 20th Chinese Communist Party Congress in 2022 and in the relation to the comparative strength of China military and the US military. The goal is to provide the policymakers with the indicators for the possible invasion, the factors that are driving Chinese decision making, so US policymakers can determine the best course of action. There is a series of number one issues with China, Cohen said. Taiwan is definitely one of the number one issues with China we are focused on. Former intelligence officials also speaking at the CPEL brief conference suggest that the abrupt military takeover of Taiwan was unlikely, but that China would more likely follow the model used by Russia in its 2014 annexation of Crimea, a slow rolling undercover takeover at first followed by more overt military movement to solidify the reality on the ground. Xi has also undoubtedly concluded it is to his advantage when he decided to move on to Taiwan to coordinate those activities with the Russians to complicate the United States problem with dealing with multiple crises, said Mark Kelton, the former CIA deputy director. Taiwan is going to be a test. Taiwan is going to be a test, said Norm Ruled, former national intelligence manager on Iran. Our resolve on China and Taiwan should be in question. People should say, if you didn't stand for Afghanistan, will you stand for other countries? China has shown a broad willingness to test that resolve. Within the last few weeks, China has been sending record numbers of military aircraft into Taiwan's air defense identification zone, called ADIZ, including fighter jet and early warning aircraft. The incursions did not violate Taiwan's airspace, which extends 12 nautical miles from the coast, but signaled the clear message about Beijing's intent. With the daily incursions into the air identification zones surrounding Taiwan, Xi is clearly signaling and testing Western resolve, said the CIA's former deputy director for counterintelligence Mark Kelton at the conference. On Tuesday, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken called for Taiwan's meaningful participation in the United Nations, hailing the Iceland as the democratic success story, even though the Taiwan could participate as something less than a full member state. Any such move to recognize the Taipei would anger Beijing, which has made it clear it views Taiwan as part of the China. The fact that Taiwan participated robustly in certain UN specialized agencies for the vast majority of the past 50 years is evidence of the value the international community places in Taiwan's contributions. Recently, however, Taiwan has not been permitted to contribute to UN effort, he said in a statement. China's strenuous objections have kept Taiwan out of international organizations such as the World Health Organization, called the WHO. The US has maintained the policy of strategic ambiguity on Taiwan, declining to recognize the island's independence while also refusing to recognize the Chinese sovereignty over Taiwan. Taiwan's exclusion undermines the important work of the UN and its related bodies, all of which stand to benefit greatly from its contributions, Blinken said.